Doom the Dark Ages is going to be a really intriguing game for me. Not that necessarily that I'm crazy about Doom, because I'm sort of impartial to it, but obviously it's a really interesting and difficult act to follow when you consider that Mick Gordon was the composer for Doom, and obviously there was a bunch of many issues that occurred, the details that I will spare you about because I also don't know all of the details, but it was revealed, I guess, in, it was today. Today. Finishing move will be the music production team for Doom the Dark Ages, and they're behind Borderlands 3, and Halo Wars 2, which are award nominated. And actually, Halo Wars has an amazing soundtrack. It's formed by Brian Triffin and Brian Lee White. Finishing Move has been closely aligned with Microsoft games of the past decade, with credits on Halo 2 Anniversary Edition, grounded in Microsoft Flight Sim to their name, as well as the score for, so I haven't heard any of this stuff. So now I'm really intrigued to check out the gameplay and hopefully hear some of this music. I don't know. Again, with trailers, it's tough because we don't know what actually is going to be in the game or not. But I do think it's interesting because if you look at like the only thing they fear is you, 21 million views, 7 million views, 5 million views, 19 million views. Obviously, you don't compare yourself, but like, how do you step into the shoes of something that is so clearly beloved? That's the real question there. And I'm really intrigued to hear what this is going to sound like. Are they going to totally deviate away from that Mick Gordon sound? And should they? I mean, in reality, they should. They should do what they feel is right as a composition team. So let's watch this trailer. Yeah. I mean, first of all, let's just talk about, this is probably the Doom that I will play because I don't really know what any of this stuff is going on. This is all insane. Like, all of this visually is astoundingly crazy. Like, the whole, like, chainsaw shield business is nuts. The dragon, the sort of, like, pseudo medieval high fantasy thing I'm really intrigued by. I'm all for it. The only reason I don't play Doom games is that historically they make me nauseous. So that's the only reason. What I found interesting in the trailer is that it's just like a frenetic constant pulse, which is actually great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, let me ask you, do you think that the expectations are going to be sort of out of range? I mean, I feel like it's kind of like huge shoes to fill in, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's such a fascinating situation because of everything that happened with Mick. And how do you navigate that without turning it into drama? Like, how does one like deviate? Like, how do you create something that's truly your own? And I think from a compositional perspective, the goal there is to say, okay, this is a new IP, it's a new title of an existing IP. We can't control what happened previously. So let's go and really like make music that we know how to make. I mean, that's pretty much the only thing. And to be honest, this is something really interesting because even in the opera days when I was singing, it's very easy to be compared to like others. So like I was a tenor, I'm a tenor. And you know who else was a tenor? Luciano Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, all these famous guys. And so they've all sung and interpreted the pieces that I have sung and interpreted on my own. And so there is an insane amount of stress that can come with that because it's like, how can I compare? And the reality is you can't. And so as artists, the responsibility lies on the artist to create and produce to the best of their ability what they are able to do. Obviously, these guys have a huge pedigree. It's exciting, and I hope that people give them the chance more than anything.
All the power of hell.
Jesus. Wow, wait, we can really... What? We can fly a... What?
All the power of hell.
Oh my god, that's actually awesome. Down. Whoa!
Engines online.
Oh my god, is that what? May 15th. That's like right around the corner. Not really. But really soon. You know what's interesting? Hold on one second. I want to skim through this developer. I won't watch the whole thing, but just for the sake of... got some fucking stank on it. Like, there's no way that doesn't have stank. First of all, the incredible sense of rhythm in there. That, plus the choir in the background, really does a great job of, I mean, again, the whole thing about Doom is that the idea is that we are unstoppable, right? We're the unstoppable force. So the music has to aid that in such a big way that no matter what happens, we constantly feel like we are Doom Guy.
Set in a cinematic sci-fi fantasy world full of locations to explore, powerful weapons
It kind of feels like Warhammer, doesn't it?
to unlock, and enemies to conquer. This is a prequel and a balance between enemy projectiles and player movement speed that makes strafing to aim viable again. Just like in the classic.
It is interesting because, like, right here, that actually has some tension in it against us as players. So there's a little bit of tension in there, and I'm sure that existed in the other Doom games as well, like where it wasn't just. And maybe I misspoke earlier because I was like, oh, it feels like it's all about us being a badass, but it's actually, I do think it's important to have a little bit of that sort of like push and pull towards the enemy musically, which is cool.
And new mechanics to master. Let me introduce you to the shield saw. Block. Throw. Parry. Deflect. All from one input. It's contextual. Tons of depth on a single button press. You know,
yeah, I like that. I actually really like when the rhythm is kind of constant. So there's an interesting, fascinating thing that I've experienced with video games that use a propulsive rhythm at all times throughout a piece. Ace Combat does this all the time. I'm trying to think about like what other games off the top of my head, but Ace Combat I know does it, and it's a thing where thum dum dum taka taka dum 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 taka taka dum dum. And so what does that do? That creates a sense of stress, right? That also creates a meditation. That creates a meditative state where you're actively engaging in a movement and combat within the game, and then you actually end up in tunnel vision in the zone. And that's like the coolest thing about like rhythmic sort of just like strumming the guitar up and down and keeping a sharp. That's it. That's the whole. That's an amazing thing.
And you can finish off the demons now with an all-new, unsynced, completely in the player's control glory kill system. From any angle, in and out.
Yeah, the chorus is a really nice touch in there. So I think the chorus is twofold. I think so that was not a sound that I remember hearing in the original, well, in the remakes of Doom and Doom Eternal. But I think the chorus is a really nice touch because the chorus. Also, sorry, it wasn't on the video. The chorus was a nice touch because it elevates the experience. And I think too in like a sort of fantasy sci-fi area. Now, of course, without comparing too much, but like the Warhammer musical universe also does this extremely well. Having this sort of like the tried and true like industrial grunge metal music coupled with chorus with the like the classical element, I think marries the two really well. I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but like the Non-Gamer React series that I have, and it's not a plug, the Non-Gamer React series I have, anytime I play metal music for professional musicians of the classical world, they actually go apeshit for it. And I think that's because the power and the sort of adrenaline and the physicality required for that kind of a sound is actually not dissimilar to the sound and the sort of like human power that we hear in classical music and certainly in opera, which is basically an Olympic sport. So it's really cool to like hear all that married together. Yeah, I'm down with this.
With a new difficulty system and sliders that will allow
sliders. Praise be.
players to tune the speed and challenge of the game to whatever fits.
Sliders are the best thing. As a 37-year-old gamer, give me the sliders. I want to be able to like customize this shit down to the wire for me, for how I want to play and experience the game. Now, if they set it that like one setting is the setting, then so be it, right? That's fine. That's like as it's intended. There's always this debate about difficulty and like what's as intended for the devs and something. But for me, if there's an easy option, that's where I go. I like playing games on easy now because I'm a bit of a grazer. I like to sort of dabble in everything. So being able to have a difficulty slider is and to the degree that it's in this, that's exciting.
Size of a building It's powerful, and you can beat giant Titan-sized demons to death with your gauntleted fists.
Yeah, you can actually already hear the size of the Titan sort of gauntlet mech thing.
And if that wasn't enough, we also have for you your very own fire-breathing, Gatling gun-toting cybernetic dragon. Neither of these are one-and-done features either. They have a full suite of abilities and even mini-bosses. The spectacle is epic. The Power Fantasy is unlike anything we've made it in. And the combat systems behind these features are deep and tons of fun. And as cool as all that is, we know that fans of single-player action games expect more than just great combat to pull them through the experience. So we're excited to share with you not just the gunplay, but the world of Doom: The Dark Ages.
Oh, I love the horns in here, huh?
Your hero's journey will take you to the far reaches of the Doom universe. Mysterious worlds from the Slayer's past, dark forests, dungeons, ancient hellscapes, battlefields, and worlds beyond. And the objectives you pursue. It's a Doom sandbox full of war and riches. Once you've broken the enemy assault, head back to the main gates because the battle isn't over yet.
That sounds good.
And the soundtrack to your
here you go.
adventures will be composed by the award-winning team at Finishing Move, providing you with a metal soundscape that's loaded with guitars, medieval vibes, and pure adrenaline. You'll feel like you're expanding the legend of the Slayer with every mission you complete.
Nice. I really appreciate that they highlighted it. I mean, 10 seconds of it, but at least they mentioned it. That's pretty cool. And actually what you hear there is really dope too. I mean, I think it's going to naturally continue that sort of tradition of how we expect Doom to go. And really the musical history of Doom is something that I really actually should sit down and shit down. I should shit down. The musical history of Doom is a very important one, I think, and one worth exploring. So I think as we get closer to release, I'll probably sit down and do a video where I look at the history of Doom's music, because I think that there's a lot to uncover here, without diving too far into the sort of like drama of what's occurred with, some of the stuff that happened with Mick Gordon and stuff. It's just a tricky thing to navigate, but there are people that are far better at that, explaining that, than I am, and also, I don't know. I mean, it's a shame personally, but I also think like, all right, well, this is happening, so like, how do we talk about it, or not talk about it? No, you know what I mean? Like, so
power is coveted by your enemies and withheld from your allies. With the Slayer imprisoned at the start of our story, the balance of power between good and evil is shifting, and time is running out. It's a new story and the perfect entry point for new players.
I think too, what makes something unique and what makes something inoffensive? Like, we clearly have to say something when we talk about music, and as a composer, one has to, do their best to express something and not emulate something else. And to circle back to my earlier point about like, there are plenty of better singers than me that sang the same pieces I did. But the thing there is that like, that doesn't mean that the way that I'm presenting is bad. It just means that that's my interpretation. It's also an interesting discussion about like, how do you take something that has been and what do you do there to ensure that it is yours, for the players, unique, and also interesting, and doesn't need to be interesting, or can it just be like what it is? Like, does it need to be the next They Might As Well Be Dead? Or that's not the right. Does it need to be the only thing they fear is you, or rip and tear? Not really. There's going to be plenty of bangers in this soundtrack. It's an interesting discussion, I think, about like the many layers of like artistic value, and like what do people want? Will they be okay with whatever it is? Will it inevitably be compared to what came before? I, for one, I'm always open to giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I also, like, these guys have a pedigree. And so, like, that has to be trusted and it has to be, like, respected. Composing for video games is not easy, especially for a heavy metal kind of sound like Doom, where it'd be really easy to just, like, kind of get stuck in on you know, your sort of basic metal industrial sound. I don't know. I find that discussion, I'm not really getting into the weeds about it, but I find the discussion kind of interesting about it. I'd love to know what you think. I mean, I'm definitely excited for Doom: The Dark Ages. It's definitely one of those games that I'm going to play regardless of whether or not I finish it or not. But for the sake of the music, I think it's going to be a really important game for the year. Yeah, I'm really hyped. I'd love to know if you're hyped as well. Thanks a ton, and I'll talk to you later.